I reached out because I was just watching the news and I saw that there was a story about the first vape-related illness in Washington. And that kind of concerned me because I had been vape-related sick several times in the last 3 years.
That's Zoe Hjelm. She says she got sick from vaping legally sold THC. I recently sat down with her to share her story. At first, Zoe Hjelm wasn't quite sure what landed her in this hospital bed battling pneumonia.
And I was throwing up and I couldn't breathe. And it's a terrible feeling to not be able to breathe.
Her oxygen was dangerously low and her heart rate dangerously high.
And then they started asking me if I had asthma. They're like, how long have you had asthma? I'm like, I don't have asthma. You know, they had no idea what was going on.
This was 3 years ago. The then 25-year-old spent 7 days in the hospital.
They did x-rays and they had noticed that the texture of my lungs looked kind of funky. It had shown like it was burned, basically. The inside of my lungs had been burned.
Zoe had been vaping THC or cannabis oil, but that was supposed to be safer than smoking it. Back that first time, did doctors ask you about vaping?
They asked if I smoked, and they asked if I smoked cigarettes.
Did you know at that point that it was related to vaping?
No, no idea.
Still, to be safe, the doctor suggested she stop vaping, at least for a couple of months.
I waited a couple months, and I did it again, and it happened again.
How fast?
Pretty short, like within a couple days.
She was again diagnosed with pneumonia.
Doctors were like, well, have you tried vaping as an alternative? And I was like, that's exactly what caused it. And they're like, interesting. Like they almost didn't, you know, they didn't, it's not that they didn't believe it, but they're just kind of like, huh.
This time, Zoe stopped vaping for a couple of years, and she started to wonder if vaping THC was really the root of all her ills.
When I would try to quit doing it, you know, friends and things like that, they wouldn't believe that that's what caused it. They thought it was something else.
Again, she was drawn to the growing popularity of vape pens and fancy flavors. Sure enough, in February, she got the now familiar feeling of fluid in her lungs. She rushed to urgent care where staff quickly pushed her along to the emergency room.
They're like, no, you're sick, like you need to go. And my oxygen dipped down below 90, which that's when it starts with organ failure and things like that, like you're gonna die.
Again, she was treated for pneumonia, and after a while, again she vaped.
You would think that first time would be enough to not do it again, because that was intense. Obviously there was some sort of something keeping me doing it, or else I wouldn't have continued to do it.
It wasn't until this past July Zoe reached her limit.
Me trying to breathe, like it was just laying there not moving, I was out of breath.
So you quit. Mm-hmm. What changed in your mind?
I was just done. In the notes,
during her series of pneumonia struggles over the past 3 years, Zoe says doctors never fully recognized until the end that vaping THC could be to blame.
It's pretty common now. It's actually sort of part of my routine history taking about, well, do you smoke, do you drink, do you vape, and what do you vape?
Dr. Ben Arthurs is a pulmonologist with Multicare Rockwood. He says the recent rash of vaping-related illnesses has certainly crystallized a connection, but it wasn't long ago doctors may have missed it.
Looking back, we have so many illnesses that result in a sort of questionable diagnosis of pneumonia or inflammation in the lungs. I wouldn't be surprised if I have come across a number of patients in my time in the ICU who've had potentially vaping-related illnesses.
Unfortunately, Dr. Arthurs notes there are really no treatments to reverse lung damage.
And if it's permanent, it's permanent. The treatments that we offer up if you come to us with advanced lung disease are really looking at a lung transplant, which is honestly kind of the least effective or potentially riskiest and most complicated organ transplant that we do in medicine.
And I haven't done it since, and I have no desire to do it because it's not even worth it.
When Zoe heard about the rash of vaping-related illnesses popping up across the country, she felt a sense of affirmation.
I just felt a sense of validation, like I wasn't the only person.
She says she never bought anything off the black market, only locally from smoke or vape shops. Of course, not everyone who vapes cannabis will get sick. But Zoe says she hopes her story will help silence some of the speculation that perhaps all of this is just some conspiracy.
It's like, no, it's real, you know.
She calls herself living proof, who's lucky she's still living.
I would hope that people's stories like mine will deter people, because then, you know, I'm not working for big tobacco or some sort of company like that. It's, you know, personal stories hopefully will help.
And the American Vaping Association points to evidence indicating poorly manufactured street vapes containing THC or other substances are to blame for the recent illnesses. However, again, Zoe says she never bought anything over the internet or on the black market, only products from vaping or smoke shops.
It's interesting when you hear stories like hers, because it makes you think like this illness has been out there for several years, but we're now just connecting the dots as to why these patients are getting sick.
Exactly. Just a couple of years ago, doctors didn't even ask about vaping. So there's just so much we don't know.
Right.
And now that we're kind of starting to focus on it, then hopefully we'll learn more facts.
That's why it's important that people like Zoe spoke out about it.
Exactly.
Thank you, Jane.